Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vanessa Weisbrod from the Celiac Disease Program at Children's National Health System, and I want to welcome you to our webcast today about gluten-free flours and substitutions and foodie holiday gifts. So you're probably wondering why we're putting these topics together, because they could be two totally separate webcasts. And the reason is that after we did our last webcast on the holidays, we had so many people write in about more questions about holiday baking and substitutions for ingredients that we decided to talk about it again today, to give you a little more information, and also for people who didn't attend the last webcast to talk about what substitutions can be used for your upcoming holiday meals. So if you have any questions along the way, you can submit them into the questions box or the chat field. The questions box will submit them privately to me, and the chat box, it will show up to everybody who's participating. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. We'll be talking about the different types of flours, substitutions for different holiday recipes, and then we're going to get into some fun items that you can get for your gluten-free friends and family members. We'll talk about things for adults as well as for kids. Lots of totally fun gift options. But let's start with gluten-free all-purpose flours. So these are the types of ingredients that you're going to use to substitute in your traditional recipes. So there are dozens and dozens of gluten-free all-purpose flours available in grocery stores all over the world, and it can often be challenging to decide which is the right one for you. Gluten-free flours are very different from your traditional wheat flours and pastry flours in that they all use different ingredients. So if you were to look at all the different bags on the store shelf, you would find that they all have a different blending of ingredients, which is different from your normal flours that would just say wheat flour or enriched wheat flour, which are all a variation of the same grain. But when it comes to gluten-free ingredients, they're a blend, because you can't replace wheat flour one for one with any other flour. So the gluten-free mixes that you'll see in stores will typically be a blending of white or brown rice flour, a tapioca flour, cornstarch or potato starch, and then a binder like a xanthan gum or guar gum. So when I'm picking out a flour to buy, I typically like to find a blending of flours that's a mix of a high starch and a high protein, and something that's going to give a nice flavor to the baked goods that I'm making. I also will only buy them if they do contain the xanthan gum or guar gum. A lot of them don't. And for me, I find this a hassle because then I need to buy it and add it in separately. So it's not really all purpose without that in it. But again, you might find a blend that you really like that doesn't have a gum in it, and you would just need to buy a gum and add about 1/4 teaspoon to your recipe. So why, you ask, do we need this gum? So the gum provides the elements that are missing when you take away the gluten protein. So things like the doughy factor, an emulsifier, and a thickener. So those are the three things that gluten does in flour. So while we typically talk about gluten as being bad for people with celiac disease, we don't often talk about why gluten is good and why it is that we need to replace it. So in regular flour, gluten is the protein, and it provides this doughy factor that makes things elastic. So if you think about in a pizza parlor, when they're stretching the dough and spinning it around, what allows that to happen is the gluten. And when you take that away, you no longer have this dough factor, so we have to replace it. So that's where the xanthan and the guar gum come in. So if you're going to make your own all-purpose flour, I like to always talk about making large batches of it ahead of time, because when it comes to baking, you don't want to have to stop and make the flour to then make your recipe. So when I make my own all-purpose gluten-free flour, I'll usually make like a 5-pound batch at a time so that I can store it. I'll store it in an airtight bag in the refrigerator, so that it's always ready to use when I want to cook. And I always recommend trying a few different blends before you actually start making it for yourself and baking, so that you know what you like. So I'm going to talk about a few blends that you could try. So now, if you've chosen not to buy a prepackaged mix and you're going to make your own, this is a very, very basic blend. This is very similar to what you're going to find in the store-bought gluten-free all-purpose flours. So it's very starchy, and the ingredients are generally fairly affordable. So it's a blending of brown rice flour, cornstarch, tapioca flour, and xanthan gum. You can typically find all of these ingredients in any mainstream grocery store, and you'll simply blend them together, and you can store them in an airtight container for up to a month, and then use them in all of your baked goods recipes. This is probably my favorite blending of a homemade all-purpose gluten-free flour. I call it my high protein and fiber blend. The sweet white sorghum flour, it contributes protein, iron, antioxidants, and fiber to the blend. And the tapioca flour gives a really nice, thin, and sturdy crust to anything you make with it. And I love coconut flour because it naturally makes your baked good a little bit sweeter and moister, or more moist. So I can typically use a little bit less sugar when I use coconut flour. Again, you just blend these ingredients together and you can store them for up to a month in an airtight container. The one thing I do want to point out about the coconut flour is that it is great in blends, but as you can see here, I have a 3:3 to 1 ratio. And this is because coconut flour requires a little bit of extra liquid, and it's also higher in saturated fat. So I like to keep the ratio of coconut flour a little bit smaller than the others, just to balance out the nutrition in the flour. So this is a blend I call the high protein and low glycemic blend, and this is great for folks who are type 1 diabetic as well as managing a gluten-free diet. It's great because it'll cut down on the carbohydrates in your baked goods, but also boost your protein intake. So it's a combination of buckwheat flour, almond flour, coconut flour, and xanthan gum. And now for those of you wondering, how on earth am I using something that has the word wheat in it as a flour? So buckwheat is actually comes from the seed of the rhubarb plant, and it's packed with protein, actually more than rice, millet, and corn. And it also has several essential amino acids in it. So it's really a great option for gluten-free baking. Almond flour, it's naturally low in carbohydrates and bursting with protein, so it's a great one to bake with. There are whole cookbooks written about cooking just with buckwheat flour or with almond flour. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of 100% almond flour baking, but some people absolutely love it, so it's something you might want to try out. Again, you just mix these ingredients together and you can store them again for up to 1 month. So now let's talk about if you don't want to cook 100% yourself and you're not up for buying an all-purpose flour and you don't want to make your own. So there are lots of substitutions for all of your favorite holiday recipes. There are mixes that are just add oil and water and maybe eggs. There's some that are just add water. You can get pie crust breads, cakes, stuffing mixes, all frozen at the grocery store. And there are tons of gluten-free bakeries around the country who will ship ready-made products to your home. So I'm going to talk about just a handful of them. For pie crusts, there are lots of ready-made pie crusts that are at grocery stores. Even Target sells them now. You can find traditional pie crusts. You can find graham cracker crust, Oreo cookie crust, all that are gluten-free. Kinnicky Nick, Mydell, King Arthur, Williams-Sonoma, Bob's Red Mill, and Cup for Cup all have really great pie options. And all of these links are included in the handout section. So if you just click to download the handout, you'll have all this information. So you don't need to be scrambling to take any notes here. Pre-made pies, Williams-Sonoma, Harry and David, and Wolferman's will deliver freshly baked pies right to your home. Katz has a line of pies that you can purchase in regular grocery stores as well as on Amazon. And then Goldbelly also makes, they stock pies from specialty bakers and they ship them to your home. So lots of great options that taste great and you don't have to do anything except for order them. So stuffing and gravy, there are lots of companies that make very easy to use mixes. Williams-Sonoma has a great stuffing mix, Aaliyah's, Three Bakers, and Namaste, and all of these are available on Amazon. And if you don't feel like making your own gravy, McCormick has gluten-free gravy options that are very, very easy. Just add stock or water. So today is the last day of Hanukkah, so this might be a little late in the game, but if you're like my family, we're still going to have latkes next week. We have a celebration on Christmas where we make latkes and brisket. So I'll still be using these. Williams-Sonoma has gluten-free potato latkes, and there are a handful of companies that also make a mix that you just have to add water, oil, and eggs to. And then there are vendors that you can find on Etsy who will make latkes and donuts and ship them to you. And then, of course, Katz has donuts and all sorts of different types of sweets, and they're in most mainstream grocery stores now. So holiday cookies, this is something that's really important with kids. Cookie decorating is something that I remember very, very vividly from my childhood. So we like to always recommend the Gluten-Free Christmas Cookie book by Ellen Brown. She has lots of great recipes and ideas. And then there's also lots of mixes available for sugar cookies that can be rolled out and decorated. Pamela's Products, Cherry Brook Kitchens, Betty Crocker, and Immaculate Baking all have mixes that work great. And then GF Jewels has a gingerbread cookie mix that can also be used for making gingerbread houses at the holidays. All right, so I'm going to start talking now about gifts. So there's a huge gluten-free marketplace right now. There's about 18 million people in the United States who are on a gluten-free diet. So there have been lots of gimmicky gifts and some really useful gifts that have come out. So I'm going to start with some coffee mugs. So there are some very silly coffee mugs that are out there that sort of joke around about the gluten-free diet. So if there's a gluten-free person in your life who is, bursting with humor, this might be a good one for them. My personal favorite is "You're the dairy-free spread to my gluten-free bread." This is joking around because there are a lot of individuals who both have celiac disease and an issue with dairy. So just a cute mug to give to someone that you love. Now, there's also the more sort of knowledgeable gifts that I like to point out. So these are cute accessories that could also be used to remind people about preventing cross-contamination. So these really cute little gluten-free flags, I love to use these at our Christmaka dinner that we have. Half my family is Jewish and half is not. So we have Christmas dinner, but it's Hanukkah themed. So we have these cute little gluten-free flags that we put into the food to make sure people remember that they're gluten-free and to keep them safe. There's also these awesome plates and tongs that have gluten-free printed right onto them so that it can never be scrubbed away or mislabeled. And then there's these really cute boards that you can have engraved, and these make a really, really nice gift for kids or adults, for anyone really, that just signifies it's their board and that you shouldn't contaminate it. They're really cute and they look great in the kitchen. I've used these when I've gone to parties. I don't have a name on mine, it just says gluten-free. And it's really lovely to take to a big gathering because then people see the gluten-free and they're reminded to keep it safe. There's also lots of cool signs that you can have made. Some folks like to remind people to always wash their hands just to make sure there's nothing on their hands that would get into their home. And then there's the gluten-free kitchen signs. I have one of these as well as an apron that says Vanessa's Gluten-Free Kitchen, just as a reminder to people that our home is gluten-free and we like to keep it safe. Now, there are so many t-shirts in the world. This is just a very, very, very small sampling of t-shirts that you can get that are gluten-free. The Sorry I'm Gluten-Free one I put there not so much as I think that's something you should say, but is almost one to point out that we shouldn't get. We should never apologize for being gluten-free. Being gluten-free is keeping us healthy. And for me and for many of you listening, it's our only path to health. There's no medication to treat celiac disease. The food is our medicine. So I like to point this out just as a reminder that we live in a world where the gluten-free diet is still a fad, and there are a lot more people doing gluten-free because it's cool as opposed to for medical reasons. So just a reminder that, we don't need to apologize for being gluten-free. We just need to keep reminding people that gluten-free for people with celiac disease is a medical treatment. And then there are some really cute t-shirts. Disney does a wonderful job with gluten-free. So this is a t-shirt that says, "I'm just here for the gluten-free snacks." They're known for their gluten-free pancakes that are shaped like Mickey, their gluten-free ice cream bars. They have waffles. They really have gone above and beyond making a safe place for kids with celiac disease at Disney. So this is a cute one that they have. And then the Too Cool for Gluten. I really like that one. It's adorable and a positive message about celiac disease. And then sharing my gluten-free cupcakes. It's always really nice to have to share gluten-free treats with others to teach them that gluten is good. I'm sorry, gluten-free is good, and that you can eat deliciously tasting gluten-free cupcakes and food, and everyone can enjoy it. And just because it's gluten-free doesn't make it bad. Then for those ladies who are or gentlemen who are interested in being pampered, there are lots and lots of naturally gluten-free beauty products. There's Red Apple Lipsticks has a whole line, Rise and Shine Naturals, and Eco Lips chapsticks. So these are some really fun ideas for the holidays to get a gluten-free friend or family member. Then there's also lots of gluten-free skincare products for those who like to take bubble baths or have spa and facial treatments. There are lots of naturally gluten-free products that are available to get for folks. There are also entirely dedicated gluten-free spa getaways. So if there's someone in your life who you think might enjoy that, Canyon Ranch, for example, has a whole gluten-free program where you can go for the spa day and have a full gluten-free menu. They even serve gluten-free cookies in the rooms. So lots of really nice gifting options. There are also probably 24 companies now that offer gluten-free gift baskets. These are just 4 options, but there are lots and lots of them. Cookies by Design also offers a great basket of holiday-themed cookies that are all gluten-free, and these are just really nice to send people. I got my first one of these last year from Gourmet Gluten-Free Gift Baskets, and at first I opened it and I was like, wait, is this gluten-free? Like, can I eat this? And it was really good, and I was very surprised and thankful that I'd gotten a whole basket of things that were safe for me and for my son. It really made a big difference. So if you know someone who's gluten-free, this is a really nice treat to get for them. And then there are the more adventurous gluten-free gifts that you can try. There's a Snack of the Month Club that offers a subscription service that you can gift. And this is a box that will come to you every month with a different variety of snack foods. For those that are over 21, there's a gluten-free beer sample pack that you can order. And then if you live in a city, almost every city has these now. You can actually buy a tour that's a gluten-free foodie tour of those particular cities. And they take you all around the cities to different restaurants that offer gluten-free options. It's really, really a fun activity to do. It's something definitely to think about trying in if you live in any of these cities. And then, of course, there are cookbooks. So at Healthline, they just published a list of the top cookbooks of the year. So it's always fun to give folks who are on a gluten-free diet some new ideas for cooking and recipes. So I would encourage you to check out this list, either for yourself or for friends and family members. And of course, kitchen supplies. These are probably my favorite gifts because I love to cook. So it's always fun when I get something new to try. Last year, I got a spiralizer, which changed my life entirely. I mean, I still do buy gluten-free pasta, but it's also really nice just to buy squash or zucchini, even sweet potatoes, and to spiralize them and just cook it up like I would pasta with sauce. And then bread makers. I'm not a huge bread maker fan myself, but for those who like to make homemade bread, this is a great option. There are several out there now that have a gluten-free bread setting, and it adjusts for the different weights of the flours that you'd be using. So I definitely recommend checking those out. And then, of course, magazines. I've probably gotten 24 emails over the last several weeks from Amazon about signing up for magazines, not just gluten-free, but any types. But if you have, you will probably have seen that there are several gluten-free magazines to choose from, and all of them offer gift subscriptions during the holidays, so you should check them out. There's Gluten-Free Living, Simply Gluten-Free, and Gluten-Free and More. And then gift cards, the easiest gift to get, folks. There are lots of chain restaurants that offer gift cards and also have safe gluten-free options. California Pizza Kitchen, for example, has 4 certified gluten-free pizzas that are made in a dedicated facility, and then at the restaurant, they're cooked inside a sealed bag to prevent cross-contamination. And then all the other restaurants on here also have wonderfully set up gluten-free protocols to keep folks safe. So it's a great idea to get a gluten-free friend a gift certificate to one of these restaurants. And now for kids, there are lots of cute kids books about celiac disease that would make a great gift for the holidays. These books are not only a gift, but also an education lesson to help the kids learn to talk about having celiac disease, to better understand the disease, and to help them cope with the diagnosis. So I would definitely check these books out. And then there are also kids cookbooks. Um, Kids, the best way to help them understand their diet is to help them get excited about food. So there are lots of great cookbooks that are dedicated towards teaching kids to cook. And what I like about them is that it helps encourage kids to get into the kitchen. So these are 3 great books to check out. So I'm going to go ahead and take some questions. And all right, what is my personal favorite gluten-free flour to purchase? So that's a hard question because I typically have 2 or 3 always in my house. My go-to all-purpose flours are Cup for Cup, and I really like Cup for Cup. It gives great texture to everything that I've used it for. My family does not have an issue with dairy, but if you do, this one won't work for you. It has dry milk powder in it, but if you can tolerate dairy, it's a really great flour. I also use King Arthur Flour's gluten-free all-purpose flour. I love that one. And then Better Batter are the ones that I always keep on hand. And I also will use Pamela's products and Bob's Red Mill a lot too. All right, I see some folks typing, so I'll give you a second to submit the questions. Do you have any of the t-shirts? So I don't have any of the t-shirts that I put up today, but I do have a t-shirt that says I'm a gluten-free girl on it, and I wear it very, very proudly. Oh, and I have a I'm a gluten-free chef apron as well. All right, well, I think those are all the questions for today. I want to thank everyone very much for attending. And if you have any questions in the future, you can reach out to me at vweisbro@childrensnational.org. I hope everybody has a wonderful day.